strangely formal to be this far away. Okay. Okay. Last time we did prohibited forms of speech.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about shame ras, lying about someone else. We talked about lashon hara, saying something that's true but derogatory or harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about gossip that maybe isn't really derogatory but is also has no purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it does have a purpose, even damaging and derogatory information can be shared. Like, don't hire that plumber, he's really sloppy and, isn't trustworthy. That is damaging derogatory information, but if someone is looking for a plumber and is going to hire this person, like the toilet, the need this person has that information, takes precedence over the prohibition of otherwise saying damaging derogatory things. Some other examples, I don't know, about what would be toilet would be someone is, again, like any other professional relationship where you want to, someone's hiring somebody as an employee or as a contractor to do some job. Maybe somebody is involved in a friendship with somebody you are worried about, like, listen, this person has been unstable or violent or abusive, and I want to, I just think you should be careful about, this particular, before you get too involved in this person. Like that's toelet, that overrides the prohibition of lashon hara. Another reason why you might say something that otherwise you wouldn't would be if, under certain circumstances, your need for catharsis might also enable you to say, like to a therapist or to a spouse. You might be able to say things that otherwise you wouldn't say, like, that idiot I work with, blah, 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 you're just gonna that's not nice. That kind of, to anyone else, it would be kind of a nasty thing to say, but to a spouse, that just might be like a need to kind of just unload at the end of a hard day about the stressful, experience at work or with a friend or whatever, a relative. I can't believe my cousin, Harold, always gets me, whatever, okay? So that would be. We talked about lying for the sake of peace last time also. Did we get there to that? Or
Yeah.
Yes, great. Okay, you can lie for the sake of peace. All right. And we talked about ona'ah and the two forms of ona'ah. We talked about verbal ona'ah, which is sort of reminding somebody of their unsavory past or using insensitive language. And we talked about ona'ah in commerce, to underpay or overcharge. Okay. Lifnei ivir, that's it. Okay, that I think we did not talk about, right? Is that?
We started.
We started. Okay, so again, three different categories. This is phrased here in terms of speech. It's really not entirely about speech, but it could be about speech. This is like sort of different levels of our implications for other people doing something that's halachically forbidden. Sort of everyone is sort of responsible for one another. We sort of all in this together, so we want to encourage good behavior and discourage bad behavior. And when the Torah even goes so far as to say, don't put a stumbling block in front of the blind. So literally, so that, let me make sure the door is open. David is actually going. So. Okay. Should get something for us. So hi, please come in.
Hello, Wolkenfeld.
Good to see you. Good to see you again. You've been here before, right?
Yes.
If you don't have a sheet, we're on the last page, or the second to last page. So if you want to, you're welcome to. We're in the middle of Roman numeral 5, letter D. Okay.
Thank you.
So Torah says you can't put a stumbling block before the blind. Okay, you can't. Somebody is vulnerable. You can't cause them harm, and that's understood by the rabbis to be enabling someone to sin. Right? Doing something prohibited is understood to harm them. They're unable to stop. In some way, they're blinded to the reality, the spiritual reality, or the religious reality that pertains to that situation, and by enabling them to commit this sin, it's like putting a stumbling block before someone blind. So, what does that mean? That means you can't enable someone else to sin. That means they couldn't have done it had you not given them that ability. So let's classic case in the Talmud is you're on two sides of a river, and you have something non-kosher on your side of the river, and they're on the other side of the river. So you can't, you can't pass it to them over the river, or put it in a little basket with a pull string, right? And send it to them over the river, because if you hadn't done that, they wouldn't have been able to get it. But if they're on the same side of the river as you, then you can pass me that, non-kosher food item, so there's no prohibition in doing so, or you have not violated lifnei iver because you've not enabled them to. They could have done it even without you. They could have picked it up. So you're handing it to them doesn't enable anything. That being said, there's a concept called misayeya, which is a rabbinic prohibition against interacting with people, supporting them in their sin, because we want to just keep our hands clean of that kind of behavior. We don't want to encourage and strengthen people who are doing things that are wrong. And then there's a third category, which is even worse, which is mesit, which is that's when you're enticing somebody to sin, you're convincing them to sin. That's obviously, a bad thing to do. So that's obviously worse. Lifnei iver misayeya, because they sometimes come up against countervailing values. And I think I've said it many times in various contexts. Judaism is not a religion for children, okay? Because children's stories, there are victims, there are heroes and villains, and good guys and bad guys, and there's a clear message, to these simple children's stories. Judaism is not like that. Halakha is about finding a path between and among competing values. And so we don't want to enable someone to sin. We don't want to be implicated in other people's sins, but we also want to be tolerant, people, and have relationships with people who have different value systems than us, and that has to be navigated. So somebody, somebody wants to, even outside the ritual realm, somebody wants to do something that you think is harmful. Do you help them or not? I don't know, if somebody, wants, can you lend me $5 or want to, buy a pack of cigarettes, do you do that? What?
Is it personal?
You can answer. What? You would say no because.
Yeah, no, I would say no.
You would say no because.
Well, I'm on top of wanting to be Jewish. I'm also a healthcare professional. It goes against my belief of keeping the body healthy and caring for our body on my career level as well as my personal level.
Yeah, you have a personal commitment, professional commitment, personal commitment to encouraging health. This person's going to do something that's going to be harmful to them, in your opinion, so you're not going to help them. But what if they're your friend, and I don't know, that they may, you say, heck with it. Okay, right. So I don't mean to challenge you. But do you feel the competing values? There's loyalty to your friend. There's helping somebody who's maybe suffering.
Yeah.
They need a cigarette. They're suffering with that one, but you know that it's bad for them, and you have this commitment that says no, I can't enable somebody.
I encourage other behaviors like let's go for a walk. I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I, as a friend, if they're in need that terribly bad, I would try to encourage a better behavior to help strengthen that person or to help to keep that person from doing a bad behavior. The friends that I can think of that if that ever happened, that's the type of friendship that they would want in return rather than the opposite.
You gonna say something?
Yes, what happens when you love the person? That, for instance, in many cases of these people that husbands or wives, that they enable the partner, to eat and eat, to the point that they get so big. And still, that they know that they are sick, and still they are feeding them, But
Okay, look, there's a lot of a lot is raised. Look, I think we should look. It's not always easy. You want to do There's a sort of ethical stance of being helpful in your interaction with other people. At the same time, you also want to respect people's autonomy and to make their own choices and to sort of support them in their own autonomy and to let them sort of chart their own life path. So I think it's challenging to navigate this too. I mean, some of the questions that lifnei iver come up, and we had, I'm trying to think, some cases that, so a classic, inviting somebody to your home for a Shabbat or holiday meal, and they're going to drive to get there. someone Jewish who's going to drive to, right? So that's another classic case. So is the invitation, is that Lifnei Iver? Is that Lifnei Iver? Is that is that Macy? Maybe you're enticing them to sin. Because you're tempting them to get in the car on the Sabbath and drive. Because you're saying, please come to my house, I want to serve you good food. They're going to come. On the other hand,
we talk about like there's competing things with that, because if there are people who are always going to drive on Shabbat anyway, then there's also the tendency to want like the family and friend time on Shabbat, like that's a big deal.
good.
They were going to drive anyway and you're not adding to that, but there's also, you could offer to like let them stay so that
Good.
at least they have an out if they want it, but
Good.
they have their
We were paying attention
autonomous
last
decision.
Thursday. Good, thank you. Good. Exactly, right? So the counter value would be, look, you're not enabling them to drive. They could drive anyway without you. And you're encouraging them to experience Shabbat with a beautiful setting which could inspire them, and you're giving them the option to stay over. So you're not, so maybe you don't know for sure. That's like in terms of Messiah, even if it's not Lifnei Iver, because they could drive anyway, it's still Messiah if you're complicit in their sin. But if you give them an option to say, please come for Shabbat. Look, you can't just, fine, you want to go home after dinner, that's your choice, but like, you're still welcome, but please come, I'm inviting you for Shabbat, I have places for you to stay. So you're inviting them to do something entirely 100% positive. They're choosing to get back in the car afterwards and drive home. That's their choice. That you sort of separate from your invitation. You can view it separate from their invitation. And also, in this grand scheme of things, if their connection to you and to your family life and to Shabbat environment that you welcome them into can only have positive impacts on their relationship to the Torah and the relationship to mitzvot. And so holistically, that's maybe another way to see this. That's the case I shared last week, where giving food to somebody who won't say a bracha before eating it. It's forbidden to eat food without a bracha. Somebody's hungry, somebody's thirsty, give them some water. If you don't, they'll hate the Torah, they'll hate Judaism, and that's going to be worse for them. And so holistically also, like, how do we, what stand do we take? So, but these are complicated. Sometimes these questions are, do get complicated. It's a case that we've been studying in weekday davening, in our halacha study, of a university professor who, this particular school, Sabbath observant students who had final exams on Saturday would spend Saturday with the professor as like a proctor, and they would take the exam Saturday night. So it's a Jewish student, so the exam period lasts, let's say, 2 weeks. It's 2 weekends, and a week in between is the finals period. So a Jewish student comes to the professor and says, I want to take I have an exam scheduled for first Saturday of finals period, I want to take that exam on Sunday, so I'll spend Shabbat with you and you'll proctor the exam, I'll take it Sunday night. But I have another exam a week later, and that exam I want to take on Saturday, because I'll have a whole week to study, and after that Saturday exam, I'll be done with my semester. I want to go home a day earlier. I don't want to stick around until Sunday, till the end of the semester. I want to finish a day earlier. So, in other words, the student is not really Shomer Shabbat. He's not really Sabbath observant. He's just kind of gaming the system to have an extra day to study for that first exam, even though he wants to, get the situation. So what would you say if you're the professor?
I don't know, because on one hand, is it better for him to have the experience of Shabbat and to be at least partially, you're not encouraging him to take 2 exams on Shabbat as opposed to only 1, I don't know.
Yeah. Any other opinions? What do you... You don't have to have an answer. It's a complicated question. I don't, that's why. And I haven't yet read to the end of the Tshuva. I don't know what Rabinovich actually concludes. But I think he's a Jewish kid who wants to keep Shabbos. The fact that he doesn't want to keep the next Shabbos doesn't mean he's not entitled to keep this Shabbos, right? How could you prevent him from keeping the Shabbos? On the other hand, there's this whole system of the university and the credibility and the integrity of the system depends on people not abusing the system this way. So maybe you want to that's a reason to not allow him to game the system this way. I don't, so we'll see what Rabbi concludes. But the point is, these questions are actually are real questions. They in many of our lives they come up, and halachically, and also health issues or other issues where again you sort of have to when do you say I think this is wrong for you, I can't go along with this, I can't support you in this, versus this is your life and I have to respect your integrity and your independence and autonomy. So. Okay, let's go on. Any other comments on this? Okay, let's go on to Roman numeral 6. I'm going to get some benchers so we can look together at the bracha, okay? So, hold on one second. to get the ventures, but maybe we'll all have some water together as those are like it'll be like a audiovisual gastronomic like field trip. So while I'm running downstairs, if you could all get up and not drink a cup of water, and we'll all have it together, waiting on our desk. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
The water soda.
It's sort of the opposite. So they're translating it as farm made food. And I think that's a pretty good translation.
Yeah, I literally wear like tank top plus a long sleeve shirt to work every single day. Plus because the long sleeve shirt isn't like hospital issued, like they're like thermals basically. I have to wear the hospital issued like warm up jacket over there. And even today I was like because I just like pump the air in and really
Okay, ready? Good. Okay. Alright, sorry, I'll get water for myself. Actually, I'm gonna get some coffee. You want coffee or tea?
No.
I was wondering why it was sticky, and then I picked up what looked like the other venture, and it was the cover.
Oh.
And that's why it was sticky.
okay.
It's so pretty.
Very nice. It's like for someone's wedding or something. I've never seen one, so.
Okay. Sorry for the waiting. We'll all have our snacks together. Okay. So there's a requirement to say a blessing after eating. This is actually explicit in the Torah. The Torah says, "V'achalta v'savata uveirachta." You shall eat, you shall be satisfied, satiated, and you shall bless the Lord your God for the land He has given you. Okay, that is a biblical obligation to say a bracha after eating any meal that satisfies you, that fills you up. Rabbinically, any meal whatsoever, even a minimal quantity, you have to say an after bracha blessing. Okay, any meal. The way this ends up sort of playing out halachically is that there's Birkat Hamazon, grace after meals, that we say after a meal with bread. This is familiar to you. I'm very okay. Let's just look at it again, just all together. Let's go to page 59. Just we'll look at it together. Okay, so paragraph 1. This is Psalm 90, I think. Shir Ma'alot. This is from the Psalms. We sing this on Shabbat, holidays, festive meals. It's sort of a preface to grace after meals. Paragraph 2 on page 60. This is the zimun. This is the invitation to participate in the meal when a group eats together. A group of 3 women or more, one can say the zimun, should say the zimun. A group of 3 men or more, one should say the zimun to sort of invite the others to bless together. And in theory, once upon a time, it was more common. One person would say the Birkat Hamazon, and everyone else would listen to him say the brachot, and would say amen after each bracha, and that's how it was done. Typically now that printing is possible and there's mass literacy, people read their own Birkat Hamazon. But there's still somebody who's leading who is still saying the end of each bracha out loud, so others at the meal can respond amen to his bracha. Paragraph 3, that's the first blessing in Birkat Hamazon. The theme of this blessing is it's the food itself, sustenance, that God is sustaining all living things, that we all are able, hopefully, to find enough to eat. That's paragraph 3. Paragraph 4, that's the first bracha. Paragraph 4, the second bracha, is right around page 62, see the big four, right? That's on the land itself, the land of Israel. The Jewish people's ability to sustain ourselves is linked to the land of Israel, even though we're not living there, and that's not where our food is coming from. Sort of religiously, thematically, God gave us a land to sustain us, and so we thank God for that gift in Birkat HaMazon. That's paragraph 4. Paragraph 5 are sort of added section, special thanks, giving prayers for special holidays. That's paragraph 5. That's why it's in gray. And 6, okay? Paragraph 7 is the summation of the blessing for the land, okay? Al haaretz v'al hamazon, the land and the food that we get from the land. Paragraph 8 is the blessing for Jerusalem. Also, again, part of Birkat HaMazon, we pray for Jerusalem, and that is basically paragraph 8, 9, 10, and 11. That's the third bracha, the blessing for Jerusalem. The gray paragraphs are additions for Shabbat and holidays. But the basic blessing, paragraph 8 and paragraph 11, is a blessing for Jerusalem. Those are the three biblical components, the essential components of Birkat HaMazon. Paragraph 12 is is understood to be a later addition. It's a thanksgiving prayer to God who's beneficent and does good to us. It was actually added during a tragic period of Jewish history. The Talmud tells us that after the rebellion of Bar Kokhba against the Romans was crushed in the year 135 or so, the Battle of Beitar was a terrible, terrible defeat for the Jewish forces, and these dead bodies did not decompose until they were able to be buried. And for that miraculous intervention, we added this blessing, thanking God for His goodness. So it's a very sort of strange, it's a very negative sort of time in history, but we still sort of saw an element of God's kindness even in that terrible, tragic moment, and that bracha is added. Everything else, 13, 14, 15, 18, all the other paragraphs and added things is all extra stuff. And the truth is, you could skip all of it, starting in paragraph 13, insofar as if you run out of time, you are learning to read Hebrew at a reasonable pace. So everything after paragraph 13, the paragraph 13 to the end is added, it's optional, added later. It's nice to say, it's good, it's all nice, it's beautiful. But as you're learning to say Birkat HaMazon, you don't have to say it. And even as you know Birkat HaMazon, if you find I just can't focus for this, for these extra 3 pages, it's permissible to stop at the end of paragraph 12. I know people who do that all the time as a matter of routine. They just feel, let me focus on saying these bits with focus. It's hard enough. I don't need without adding all this extra stuff.
So up to 13.
Up to 12.
Up to 12.
And including 12 is the obligatory part. If you don't have, and then often the person leading will say a Brei Pri Hagafen, a blessing on wine at the end, the Birkat HaMazon is recited over a glass of wine. Many mitzvot, many rituals are elevated by many verbal declarations in Judaism are elevated by being recited over a cup of wine, and Birkat HaMazon can be recited over a cup of wine as well. Page 77, you have the after blessing for a snack. This is for any food made from one of the 7 species of vegetation for which the Torah praises the land of Israel, but not including bread. Okay? So anything made with olives, dates, grapes, figs, pomegranates, or wheat, barley, spelt, oats, or rye that isn't bread. You say this after bracha. So it's one paragraph, sort of one big paragraph. It has different options depending on, is it grain product, is it fruit, one of these fruits, is it wine? Okay, you would say this if you have a cookie, or some pasta, or grapes, or a pomegranate, or what else? A breadstick, okay? You would say this after bracha afterwards. It has the same themes as full Birkat HaMazon, but it's much shorter. It's one paragraph with different options for the season and different options for what the food item is. Okay? This should be familiar to some of you. Yes, good. Okay. If you have any other food item that's not, which would include meat or fish or eggs or tofu or celery, carrots, after that, you would say this paragraph, this bracha here, on the bottom, this paragraph on the bottom of page 80, the Borei Nefesh, a very short one line or a couple line bracha. That's the after bracha for any other food that doesn't fall into the other categories. Now, there are also brachot before for eating. These are sort of interesting. They're sort of lesser. They're not explicit in the Torah that we would have to say a bracha before eating, but we do. So this should be in here also. Page 91. Okay. So this goes. So they all start Baruch Atah Hashem, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Lord, God, King of the universe, Sovereign of the universe. That is the formula. That is what makes a bracha. That's like the important part. And then what's it for? So Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. That's the bracha for bread. If you say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz and have bread at the meal, the beginning of the meal, then that covers all the other foods you eat at the meal. Only one bracha covers you for the meal. In the olden days, bread was not just like the main part of the meal. It was also your utensils as well, right? You would have like a dish of some like food thing, and you had bread, and you would use the bread to, silverware. The bread was, so it was like a much more important part of the meal than it is for most of our meals today, nonetheless. So that's why bread had that role, okay? Also symbolically, it's a very refined, there's a lot of like human civilization that goes into bread production in terms of like the grain agricultural cycle. We see that in the laws of Shabbat. So much of the laws of Shabbat are about making bread, like 11 forbidden Shabbat labors, all leading up from plowing to baking. It's like this pinnacle product of human civilization. And so how important then to acknowledge God when we eat bread, since we ourselves have done so much to make it. Most of the times. For other grain products that's not bread, Borei minei mizunot, okay, cookies, cakes, syrup, etc. For any fruit that comes from a tree, Borei priya eitz. What's it? Okay, now there's a scientific definition of a fruit, which is not this definition of fruit. This is something that grows from a tree. A tree means it has a branch that comes from a trunk, as opposed to a what? A bush or shrub, a branch that comes from the ground is more, right? So what is not fruit? Okay, so things that would not count as Borei, do not take the Borei priya eitz bracha would be melons, bananas, what else? Strawberries. Blueberries come from bushes that have branches that come from trunks. They're very small, but they don't come like bananas. Like each leaf of the banana comes from the ground, whereas blueberries, they come from. But melons and bananas are Borei priya, and strawberries are not Borei priya eitz. So the other growing things, of course, Borei priya, Borei priya dama, that is like everything else that grows that isn't a fruit from a tree. Okay? Borei priya gafen, that's for wine or grape juice. And then shakol, shakol nihiyeh bidvaro, that is the bracha for any other thing that has no other bracha. Okay? So that would be meat, eggs, tofu, juice, water, applesauce, okay? Apples are Borei priya eitz, but they're processed, then they become shakol. Okay, it's a little complicated. It's not terribly complicated. You can get little pocket guides that you can carry around, which I recommend, so that until you learn them, or smartphone apps or something that tell you, okay? Most things are straightforward. Some of the processed foods are a little complicated, things that are combinations. Twizzlers, they're made with flour, but how much flour is in there? What about chocolate?
Comes from the ground because it's a bean.
Depends on what's.
So cocoa.
Wait, is it a bean off a tree?
Yes, it's a bean off a tree. The cocoa bean comes from a tree. So you would think it'd say Borei priya eitz because it comes from a tree. On the other hand, it's processed. On the other hand, this is the only way that it's consumed. So maybe you would get the Borei priya eitz bracha since this is the main way this particular type of fruit is consumed. So there's a strong argument to be made that you should say Borei priya eitz on chocolate. Nobody that I know does that, and shakol is the bracha that people make on chocolate because it's processed. But an argument can be made that even though it's processed, it's recognizable as chocolate, and this is the only way people ever consume. No one eats cocoa beans. I mean, it's very rare to eat cocoa beans. Right? With most, like 99% of the cocoa beans are consumed in chocolate form, not in
So
fruit
what about
form.
like cocoa powder? I mean,
Cocoa.
you're always adding that to something, I know, but I'm saying like the cocoa powder itself, basically.
Yeah, so that's, because that, you're saying that's even less processed?
Yeah.
So it's still
It's
ground,
really-
it's still ground, I think once you're gonna make
It's
chocolate
still
on
like
chocolate, it's,
out of the form of
exactly,
it.
yeah, I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, also, I mentioned, you mentioned about the cocoa beans.
Sure.
I grew, in the south of Mexico,
Oh.
and I had the opportunity to go with my family to the market to buy
Oh,
cocoa
wow,
beans,
okay,
and then take it toasted, and then
Amazing.
take it to the mill
amazing.
to do all the process. But in the meantime, sometimes some of the beans are sweet enough, okay, it's always bitter,
Mm.
but some of them they're sweet enough after they toasted.
Oh, really, without any
And-
sugar, so you brought, okay.
Yeah, so
I mean, you're right, but generally we go, for all of these rules, we go by the main way that things are. Sometimes it's not so, like olives. Are olives mostly consumed for oil or for olives? So maybe like if we think that olives are about being eaten as olive form, then you'd say ha'etz on the olives. You say no, really, olives are for making oil. Then you wouldn't say then you would say ha'etz on the oil, not on the plant. So that's a.
So that you would go towards what your comment.
No, I think
or
that's
is
it's
that
discussed.
still
It's discussed in the Talmud as like what is like the main use of this product. I think we say ha'etz on the olive itself, but that is the generally for most of these questions, it's like what most people use it as opposed to what an individual may decide to do. Not always. Okay, so the bracha for water is Shakoni Bivra. Okay, so and also for coffee. So we'll say should together. Ready? Okay. You want to look at it? It's on page. Let's find it. It's on page. The top page 90. So the Baruch part is on page 91. The end part is on page 92. You should hold the thing in your hand when you say the bracha, if that's at all possible. Okay, and usually it is because like you want there to be clear what you're saying the bracha about, and that there should be like continuity and no interruption between the bracha and the actual eating. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyah bidvaro.
Here's a question though.
Yeah.
It's something like a water bottle
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to drink out of multiple times. Only
yeah.
the first time with the vessel, or every time you start drinking out of it?
Okay, that's a very good question, and it's very quick. Because some people with water bottles just sip at it for like the period.
Yeah, 'cause I have
of,
one, it's like a Camelback, so I sip out of it all day.
Yeah. So
Kind of nonstop.
yeah. So really, there's a certain time. If you're constantly sipping, you would say one bracha, and then you wouldn't say the after bracha until you're done. Assuming that you're consuming it. I mean, there's a question with tea and coffee. If you just sip at it a little bit, sip it, maybe you're not having it quick enough, and that's a question that people discuss. For the after bracha, you really have to eat it, drink it, consume it in like within a certain amount of time. So. If you're taking a little sip, I don't know, maybe you're taking like a big gulp, maybe you're taking, the equivalent of like half a cup of water, then you could really say a Borei Nefashot and after bracha afterwards, and then 20 minutes later, 10 minutes later, you say a Nishakol. If it's really more gradual than that, then you wouldn't say a Nishakol. And a part of it also depends on what you have in mind. Like if it's, I'm at my meal, I'm going to eat here, I'm there, I'm at Kiddush, I'll eat at this table, that's it,
But it's like I'm at my desk and I'm going to have a water bottle that's on my desk while I'm working.
So maybe, yeah, so I think it depends how big your gulps are, right? Maybe if you're like bigger gulps, you would say shakol and then a Borei Nefashot afterwards, and then 10 minutes later you would say new shakol. Whereas if it's smaller sips over the course of an hour, you would just say shakol and you wouldn't say the after bracha until you're done. I mean, it's a healthy thing to do, so I don't want to discourage that, but sometimes it makes it halakhically better. It's just to be a little more, to have like bigger quantities. No, yeah, I know, and that's totally fair. Yeah. Is that satisfying? Is that a helpful answer or too vague? There's some people who will they'll modify their eating behavior in order to be more clear which bracha they should make and how. So they'll I don't know what the bracha is for like cholent, which has barley and meat and potatoes and mushrooms and I don't know what's the essential part, what's the most important, I don't know. So it's a salad which has olives and lettuce. I'll wash and have a slice of bread with my roll with my meal, and I'll say I'm not have to worry about it. Or, did I eat enough? I only had one small Oreo cookie. Is that big enough to say the after bracha, the Ahamichya after bracha? I'll have a second cookie just to be safe. So there are people who do that, and there's something admirable about sort of modifying one's behavior to avoid doubt and uncertainty and be on firmer ground when one says bracha. On the other hand, I think you're entitled to live a normal life, and if it's healthier for you to stay hydrated and avoid snacking on junk food or whatever, you're going to have a water bottle at your desk and just sip with that water bottle, I think you're entitled to do that. But don't forget about the idea of bracha, okay? Let's put it that way. And again, what you have in mind, certainly if you say the shehakol is going to cut for this entire water bottle, and then you wouldn't. See, if you say shehakol for the water bottle, even if you're going to drink it over 45 minutes, I think that you wouldn't make a new.
So you could just do it every time you finish the water bottle.
That sounds fair. And you get up from the desk. You shehakol on that water bottle, and then when you finish it and get up from the desk, you'd say, "Great, finish it."
With the intention that I'm going to say it over this bottle.
I think so. Yeah. If you're getting up to leave, it's good to say the after bracha at that point, unless the intention is it's like a meal that you're gonna eat, like a kiddush meal where you're gonna go from table to table and munching. Then but you should have that in mind. Okay, I'm gonna start the meal here. I'll say the mizonot on my cookie here, but I'm gonna then have a little salad over there and some deli over there, and then I'll say the after bracha that's appropriate when I leave the room. I'm not having that coffee. We'll say the after bracha in a minute. Any questions about bracha? Another bracha. Okay. Look at page 92 also. Asher Yatzar. This is a bracha upon leaving, it's a bracha for using the toilet, set upon leaving the bathroom. Okay? So this would basically say each time you use the toilet, upon leaving the bathroom. You don't say it in the bathroom because we don't say bracha in bathrooms in general. It's like sort of not considered respectful. Even though a modern bathroom is pretty clean, with a flush toilet, it's pretty clean. We leave the bathroom before we say bracha. Consider more respectful in that way. So when you leave the bathroom, you say this bracha. So this is it speaks about the wisdom with which the human body was created, the dependency that we have on our bodies functioning, that everything, things are supposed to be open are open, things are supposed to be closed are closed, and how our ability to survive, depends on that. As a nurse, you certainly understand how true that is, and so this is a way to sort of inculcate that value and to thank God for that our body functions well. So that's Asher Yatzar. So this is all, you can. It could be a little bit long to memorize at some stage perhaps at this stage in your life. So maybe you can you can have it written on a card that you carry with you. You have it on your phone, so you can say it until you memorize it. So the bracha is Asher Yatzar, right? It's called the Asher Yatzar, or the Asher Yatzar, because the first beginning of that who fashioned Asher Yatzar fashioned humanity with wisdom. I think in Yiddish the word for toilet paper is Asher Yatzar paper. That's so for what it's worth. I think that's true. Okay. Then if you look at page 94, you see other brachot for phenomenon in nature. This is to inculcate a feeling of awe and reverence for God as we encounter natural phenomena. So look, here's one. If you see lightning or any astonishing natural phenomenon like a beautiful tree or the Grand Canyon Oseh Maaseh Breshit. Again, all of them, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, the opening phrase of the bracha, and then Oseh Maaseh Breshit, who performs the work of creation, this lightning, this amazing tree, the Grand Canyon, whatever, okay? Hearing thunder or earthquake, tornado, shekocho ugvurato malei olam. His strength, his power, and might fill the world. You see a rainbow, zocher habrit ne'eman v'ito b'kiyam b'aman marav. Remembers the covenant, fulfills his pleasure, keeps his word. What's that a reference to? What's the covenant that we recall? What's God's pledge he's fulfilling when you see a rainbow? Any idea? Any idea? So the rainbow is introduced in the Torah after the flood. And God promises, no, I'll never destroy the world again through water, and the rainbow is God's sign. So we see the rainbow, so that God is, keeping his promise. The world's not going to be destroyed through a flood again. God's keeping his promise. We're recalling that siman, that breeds, that covenant God made, that the natural cycles will continue, that God won't intervene and destroy the world through the flood again. Trees blossom for the fruit trees actually blossom for the first time each year. You see a fruit tree, that fruit-bearing tree blossom in the spring, in the month of Nisan in particular. This is a bracha that can be said. I used to go, Princeton used to go every year to an orchard during the month of Nisan to say this bracha. Since I moved here, I've not found a nearby fruit-bearing tree that I've been able to say this bracha. I have a list somewhere, some group produced a list of fruit-bearing trees located in Jewish neighborhoods in the New York metropolitan area. So you can, 27 East 43rd Street, there's an apple tree in the yard of this guy's house, and you can go and say the bracha. I do not have such a list for Chicago, so anyway. An especially beautiful person, animal, or plant, shekachalo ba'olamo. Okay, you're just overwhelmed with the beauty of this person or this. If you see a tiger, I don't know, or a magnificent tree, okay, you could say that bracha. Deformed person, an ugly, something very ugly, okay, mishnah briot, who varies the forms of his creation, even something that is kind of whoa, that's startling, God also made the person this way, made this thing this way, and that also there's a story in the Talmud of somebody who I forget who it was, one of the rabbis in the Talmud made some disparaging comments about an ugly person, and the ugly person said to him, listen, you shouldn't don't complain to me, complain to the one who made you this way. And the rabbi's like, oh gosh, oops, he realized his mistake and begs him to forgive him, and it's a really interesting story. And so on and so forth. Okay, there are other, you get the idea, there are other brachot as well. Lightning, thunder, rainbow, these come up. It's good to, it's nice to, if you have it on your phone, you can sort of, or if you memorize it, you can, in the moment, it's often, oh wait, there's a rainbow, what's the bracha again? Where do I find it? And then it's gone. So, you can review these so that you know them when the occasion occurs, or have them easily accessible. It's a nice way to take phenomena that exist in sort of a neutral way and to elevate them to being religiously inspiring moments. The only other thing we should have skipped over, before eating bread, we also wash our hands. And there's a bracha for washing our hands. Let's make sure, just look at it together. It's on page 93, that's in the mitzvah, in this page of mitzvah brachot. So mitzvah brachot tend to begin, they all begin Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, because it's a bracha, so it begins with that formulation. Since it's a mitzvah bracha, it has the next line is Asher kitshanu v'tzitav v'tzivanu, who sanctified us, made us holy through his mitzvot, and commanded us concerning ... So for hand washing, it's al netilat yadayim. For putting up a mezuzah on your door, likboa mezuzah, etc., etc., etc. There are, a great deal of these mitzvah brachot. So we wash our hands we use a vessel, like a cup or a washing cup, to wash our hands. Typically right before left. Some people do 1, 2, 1, 2. Some people do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it doesn't matter a great deal. We say the bracha as we dry our hands, and then we typically don't talk until we say the hamotzi bracha and eat the bread. Why do we talk? Because we want to be focusing on our hands, not going off and getting dirty again. The assumption is, unless you're conscious of your hands, you will, we assume that you might, scratch yourself or pick up, whatever, scratch, and then you'd have to wash again. So how do we know that we're focused? We just don't talk. We're just focusing on keeping our hands from touching anything that would make you need to wash again. If you do talk, you don't have to wash again, right? You could say, pass the salt, or really anything, as long as you're, if you're looking at your hand, right, and you're confident that your hands are not touching anything, there's no need to wash them again. So I guess if somebody is let's say you have a, oblivious aunt at your meal and you wash and you're like, oh, what a great, necklace, you try. So, okay, it's okay if you talk, okay? It's okay to, you could say, I'm going to wait to talk until Hamotzi or whatever it is you're going to say, or say thank you. I don't know, whatever it might be. It's okay to talk. You don't have to wash your hand if you do, but then you educate people with these hands that this is how we don't talk between when we wash and when we make the motzi. He wasn't actually my grandfather. He was married to my grandmother. I called him Grandpa. He had many Shabbat meals with my family when I was growing up, and every single meal he insisted on saying something between we washed and my motzi. I'm convinced it was intentional, but I never got to verify that. But there's another story, one final story about not talking between the bracha and the thing the bracha is over, maintaining the continuity. And for this, I'm going to turn off the. It's slightly off color. I don't know. It's not